Brian, we need to get started here, unless y'all want to conduct it.
That's when it comes up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I got it. You ready?
All right. This is the second development, really our first full-fledged development workshop for the 14-15 budget year. We've about compiled the budget and got it all together. The only things that we're currently missing, the main thing is our CHP increase. We factored in us, and as well as the other constitutionals, factored in a 5% increase for this budget purpose, but due to the Affordable Health Care Act and other, or mainly the Affordable Health Care Act, I was being nice, that it very well could go up as high as 8% from what we're hearing.
I thought that was an Affordable Health Care Act.
What's according? Yeah, you're right. It's affordable for the government, federal government, not us.
What part of it made it go up?
There's some mandates in there, basically in a very abbreviated version. What they're doing is they're front loading. Naturally, we as insurance payers and taxpayers, we're going to pay for it anyway. So what they're doing is, in employers over 50, what they're doing is the first couple of years, the first 5 years, they're front loading, making us pay penalties for having that many people on. So every insurer, you have to pay a percentage so they can build up a fund of money to be able to over time draw down on for the folks they need to insure. And then ours, in theory, is supposed to go this year from here, next year, and then it goes like that. In 2020, it's supposed to be no fine or that's not a fine, but that's what I call it, a fine for being successful. So, but that's basically an abbreviated version of what's happening. It's not right, but it is what it is. And also, our ad valorem continues to go down. It actually is better than what we were first thinking. Now it's at 1.55%, below what we had anticipated. We were first anticipated about a 3%. It's half of that, which is good news. That still constitutes a $120,000 loss to the county, or less revenue. Our state revenues went up some, so, but not a dramatic amount. We're kind of about where we were last year with funding. And let's go to the first slide. Go flip to your first slide. That's pretty much what I talked about there. Let's go to the second slide, which is the general fund 001. The ad valorem is $128,000 to the negative. All right. Next slide. Medicaid and Medicare increased by 14. This is in the general fund by $14,133. Just as in the general fund only. This is not the constitutionals. Their increases are pretty much what you see in the increase you'll see later on. Medical examiner went up $1,000. Now that one's important. That one will increase. The medical examiner, that will increase in 2 years. This is state mandated. That's going to double in 2 years. Not the increase, but the amount that we pay.
When you say state mandated,
that's by the legislature.
They're saying that we have to pay more than we can negotiate.
Yes. Yes. And that we're paying $220-something thousand now, and it bumps up as high as $480 in 2 years.
Can you repeat those numbers?
220 is what it is today.
220 is what?
I can give the exact number. I got to pull that up.
220,000.
Yeah. And that's just one of many state mandates that they're helping us out.
Well, so I don't have my arms around this.
All right, hold on. I'll tell you. All right, as of right now, we pay $291,593.
For what?
That's for state Medicaid and Medicare, nursing, medical examiner, etc. No.
That's not medical examiner.
Okay, medical examiner separate. This is state Medicaid that I'm talking about. I'm sorry. Brenda threw a curveball at me. Anyway, the state Medicaid went up from $277 last year to $291 this year. Next year it goes to 310, and in 4 years out, it's 419.
Did
So-
Florida accept expansion of Medicare, Medicaid under
This
Obamacare?
this has nothing to do with the Affordable Health Care Act that we know of. This has to do with the way the state works. It is the way the system used to work was every person in Wakulla County that applied for Medicaid, the state pays a portion and the county had to pay a portion. Okay, that's the way it worked before, which we were good with that. Our number was we were consistent. The state come back and said, wait just a minute, we don't like the way that's going. We haven't covered all of the cost. So counties, y'all are going to have to come in and cover more. So they set it more of a straight line allocation, not necessarily based on how many people go on Medicaid in their county, but how many people go on Medicaid statewide divided by our population.
So it's population based.
Yeah. It's not a fair system. I thought the way it was before, but this is one of those systems that they're continuing to argue with about at state level. But as of right now, this is the formula that's in there.
This is one of the main priorities, too, with Chris Doolin with the Small County Coalition. So he's been fighting this for 2 years, and it's about to phase in.
Yeah. And our FRS went up $33,000. That's, now understand, that's just in the general fund. Like, Mary Dean, what did y'all's go up? Well, I know that. No, your which would be equate to how many dollars? Yeah. About 125. So you can see everybody's having to absorb a whole bunch of that. So
Can we go back to that medical examiner, because that was a little confusing. They're not mandating how we pay the medical examiner.
No, that medical examiner is a mandated.
Yes.
We have to have that, and sanity inquisition.
Are they telling us how much we have to pay?
Yes.
It's a 2% increase, and it should be year over year, and that is from the Board of Medical Examiners.
So it doesn't matter who we negotiate with, they're setting the price for us, the legislature?
Yes.
Correct.
Between medical examiner and sanity inquisitions, which is set by the state, the county pays $111,500 a year.
So is that increase just for cost of living increases? Can we renegotiate and find another provider and reset the bar and then be subject to those increases?
These are set by the state. They're state mandates, just like the Medicaid.
That's exactly what I was asking.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our salaries, and it's set by the state.
Nothing we can do about it. We've already looked at that every way known to man. So what this does is basically, I'm going to stop here a second.
Can I ask one more question on that medical examiner? That $1,108 represents what?
2%.
That's the
2%.
increase.
Right.
So what is the amount we pay them?
It's going to be $55,000 for 14-15 approximately. They went from 53
Mhm.
8 something like that.
So how often do we see them?
What they do is they provide autopsies and things like that when they're ordered,
Mhm.
and then we get a monthly bill, a portion of the contract yearly.
So our medical examiner is someone we know?
It's based out of Tallahassee, and one medical examiner, I believe, covers about 7 or 8 counties for the Big Bend, and it's not every single person that passes, but it's certain situations that get referred to the medical examiner. I'm not sure. what
Like
they-
the folks that die are homeless, they automatically have an autopsy. So and we have to pay for that.
automatically get referred.
So I would imagine that the fee that we pay is population-based. So if we're paying $55,000 and it's covering 6, 7, or 8 counties, and it's mandated by the state. Thank you.
Yeah, and your sanity inquisitions is 55,000. So some days I think that needs to be higher, but
At least be working hard.
There we go. Next, the next slide. Health insurance increased in the general fund by 5%. It's $13,480. And we also have a 2% cost of living raise for our employees at $41,500.
Is that all employees?
Yes, and then $109,000 for fuel contamination cleanup.
Not just board people, right?
That's, well, for the constitutionals that have wanted, Cheryl's said no. I think Buddy has increases, and so does property appraiser.
Sure.
So does the clerk. And the sheriff? Okay.
So on the cost of living, this is for just the board's
This is just
employees?
the general fund employees, yes.
Does this include administration, how up to where?
It's just 2% across the board.
So that includes you?
Yes. Then also out of this, we're paying fuel contamination cleanup out here. Next year is projected to be at $109,545. That's in the budget as well. So, we've got, out of our revenues increased by 1.29%. Whoops. There you go. 1.29%, which is an additional $244,268. We're going to allocate that as below. Now, understand this, in order to, one of the problems, as you know, we have is the fine and forfeiture fund. And trying to put as much as we can in there. Currently, the sheriff is about 50% of our out of our revenues. So therefore, we allocated 50% of that, of the $244,000 to the sheriff, which is $123,000. Tax collector gets 16.44% or $40,000. Supervisor election $1,700, and the property appraiser $31,480, and the clerk of court $7,916. This year, the BOCC takes the lower half of that.
Isn't the clerk
Yeah.
makes up a larger percentage than that, don't they?
No, I'm talking about, this is just of that increase.
I understand, but are they giving their employees a 2% now?
They're giving them, their employees a 2% as well. So,
Could we go back to the cost of living allocation of that 41,515? Does that represent the net that's being given to the employees as far as increase, but that doesn't include the other things that go along with it? The COLAs and all of the, not COLAs, but the things that we chip in to as
Health insurance increase?
health insurance.
well, I mean, the FICA and,
Retirement, FICA,
Yeah.
that is populated as well with the 2%.
so that,
It's all included in the budget.
okay. Is that the 41,000?
That is actually just the portion of the wage increase. It doesn't include the FICA and the retirement portion of it.
Okay, and what would be the estimate?
I wouldn't want to
Okay.
throw one out there. I can get it for you tomorrow.
Thank you.
So, of the 204, now understand, out of this 244, well, I've also tried to make all the funds work towards a common goal, meaning roads, general fund, fine and forfeiture, sewer, water, solid waste. What I've done is we had not allocated any funds from solid waste or sewer or roads in the past. I've added interfund transfers, because those funds, we're in the process of either correcting those funds or they have been corrected.
There was
okay?
actually a lot of that several years ago.
That's right.
And we cut it all out at one point because they were sucking them dry.
Well, they were sucking them. That's the problem, is when they're on the uptick, you can do that. When they're on the down, you can't do that. So, what I've done this year is a small amount, but I've added it in here, and this primarily went to the fine and forfeiture fund to try to help bring that up, okay? Because as you'll see later in the process, the fine and forfeiture fund looks better, but there's still, still work to be done there. Excuse me, let me cut this off. So, the other funds are stable. We've taken steps to make them work. They're working now, and they'll work even, and the biggest thing was with the USDA funding that you'll hear about tonight. As soon as we get that agenda item back, which hopefully will be the next meeting, we'll move forward with that. Within 2 years, that will set us in good shape, okay? And we'll be in good shape before then, but we'll be in great shape then.
Can we back up the
Sure,
previous slide?
sure.
The fuel contamination, that's for this project out here? I thought we took care of that in last year's budget.
It's a 3-year project.
Okay.
Paid Out of that, this year, let's see. Let me find that for you.
68,000 in the current year is what we budgeted for.
Yeah, it's and it's going to end up costing us $168,000 this year and $109 next year, and then they say they'll be done. There's a possibility they'll be done this coming up year. That's their projection, but we'll have to wait and see.
Still a lot cheaper than what we thought it was gonna be.
Still a lot cheaper than so far than what we thought it would be. Okay. Now, so that's the way and so at the end of the day, if you want to know, if you roll all this up, the extra revenue that is there to be distributed is the $244,268. And for a $20 million budget, that's not much of a an increase if you were running you were wanting to increase your profit. That's what it is. But the good news is this supplies the clerk of court, property appraiser, supervisor of election, tax collector what they had asked for in their budget presentations. Fine and forfeiture, naturally they have to ask for more than what we can allocate to them. So so anyway, go to the next slide, which is the general fund revenues. And this is just a roll up of the revenues. If you'll notice, we're also, as part of this, is we have an increase of $112,000 revenue in our EMS department revenue, which is 3/4 of the way down the page. That's the highlight of that. We're basically on run rate right now of $900,000, a little bit over that, and we hit that last year. So therefore, we purposely last year we didn't know whether we'd hit $912,000 last year, and we said, well, was that an anomaly or what was that? But this year we're on that run rate, so we're budgeting $912,000 this year.
Which line are you on this?
It's 3/4 of the way down the sheet, and it's EMS department revenue.
That's a substantial improvement too over the last few years.
And we have taken that from $400,000 when myself and the chief first walked in the door. It was $400,000 a year, and now we've stepped it up to $900,000.
It's Shirley's still there, right? Or Shirley retired?
It's same people, same thing, and everybody told us we needed to get somebody to do that for us, and we did it. Okay, so that was just through paying attention to your business and what's going on and being disciplined and knowing, and also monitoring. That's the biggest thing. That's why, what is the old adage in business is what gets measured gets done. We measure this on a daily basis. If you make people, it's amazing when people realize they have to turn in reports. It's amazing how they start watching that stuff. The next slide.
Why the big cut in the extension department?
That was primarily due to fund $18,000 that we had brought forward cash last year for air conditioners that we're not doing this year. That was spent. That was a cash carry forward. That's the reason this brings them back to their normal budget.
Okay.
That's what it does. That's the problem with some of this stuff. Cash was carried forward for something, and it shows it. And naturally, you will not see on here, or let me see, code enforcement. You'll notice there's a $6,000 decrease, but actually it's much more than that because this is off of the revised budget. That budget was $120,000, I believe, this past year, and we cut that department, so that savings is much larger than that.
And the library grant?
And the library grant is we spent down some of the cash. It's a cash deal as well. Next page is okay. Also, let me back up on revenue here real quick.
So we're back to page 7.
Yeah, let's go back right here to this one right here. What we did this year is we committed to the sheriff's department that we would no longer fund them directly out of a particular fund. Before we were funding them out of ad valorem. We said we'll give you an allocation. Okay.
That's what Mary Dean wanted.
That's what Mary Dean wanted. So Mary Dean gets what she wants. So that's what this reflects. That's where you'll see up here. You'll see Sheriff returned the board $2 million. What that is, that $2,042,000, that's just the jail bed revenue plus the other miscellaneous revenue that was there, shown there. Then you got the general administration revenue. If you notice, that went from this year of $7.8 million, to $15.2 million. Out of the general administration revenue, what we were doing before last year, we were carving out the $7 million that was going to the sheriff and transferring it straight out of ad valorem and assigning it to the sheriff. This year, what we're doing is we have to show that back in here now, that allocation. That's the reason that number went from 7.8 to 15. Okay? So all that is then on the next page I'll show you where we carved that back out from the expense standpoint. So from the revenues, if you want to see from a revenue standpoint, the total revenue that the county is going to bring in is $18.898 million. Now, to give you some idea of, you say, okay, well, how does that compare with where we've been? We, in 2010 and 11, our revenues were $21,066,110.
That includes grants and everything, Joe, right?
No,
This is just
no,
general fund revenue.
general fund. This is apples to apples.
That's ad valorem,
That's
state grants,
everything.
not grants, but you know what I mean.
That is everything
Allocation.
that's shown on this sheet. If you compare those exact departments with 2010 and 11, 2010 and 11 we had revenues of $21,066,110.
And now we're dealing with just shy of 19.
Now we're dealing with just shy of 19. So that gives you an idea of how things have come off, and so. But anyway, let's go to the expenses, which is the next slide. Do I need to flip this for anybody up here? Anybody watching this?
Well,
Good.
Well, they can watch it.
If you can read that, you're pretty darn good anyway. Our general fund expenses, this is where you'll see that the clerk of court expense of $553, the property appraiser, sheriff's expense, this is where we're carving out the $9.4 million that was represented on the other side. This is their allocation. This includes their what we're going to allocate to them, which includes the $2 million.
So we're taking
on
all
that.
ad valorem and just giving Mary Dean a piece of it instead of...
Now, Mary Dean, if you want to, technically, they'd have just about all the ad valorem if we were doing it that way. Just about all of it.
But when you say...
But it's not, we're just allocating it, so.
What is the difference between allocating and giving?
Because
Well-
Mary Dean could argue that
Mhm.
you could pay me out of your state, the money the state gives you, instead of ad valorem taxes, which she said a lot of times, I think, if I'm not mistaken. We've been saying we're paying you ad valorem, but we still have other revenue sources that we could have used to pay their expenses too.
And that's what we're doing this year. It's a fair allocation. So, as you'll see, those are the allocations, and as you can see, that's the expenses, and we're roughly about $30,000 increase in expenses than where we were last year in the general fund, and pretty much that $30,988 comes from the general fund. That has nothing to do with our constitutional officers. That
When you said that we had an operating revenue of 21 and we're down to 18, what year was that, 21?
No, that was 10,
11.
11.
How about the 10, 11 expenses?
Ten 11 expenses were $19,982,000.
So we're
So we're about
19.
It's about the same.
It was
We're about $1 million
20
down.
And we were at 19. We're a million.
not
We're a
we
million
were
down in expenses.
well actually we're let's see. We ended at 19,982 and now we're at a million we're at 19 well, excuse me, we're at 18,900, so that's about $1.8 million drop.
1.8. So we're $2 million less than budget, And we're $2 million less in expenses, more or less. We're $2 million
you're-
less in expenses than 10. Is that correct?
You're
1.8, whatever.
hold on. Yeah, we're at 21, we were at 21 million in revenue, and this year we're at 18, that's 2 million.
2 million.
That's
yeah.
right, that's right.
So we decreased in revenue,
This year
and
we're
we
at
decreased in
18.
expenses about 2 each. So we're about $4 million difference.
That's right.
When you're saying this, I'm sorry, when you're saying the revenue this year is 18, is that the one that's close to 19? Or it's really 19? Okay.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the EMS department expense is 1.7 million, but the revenues are 900,000. Is all that coming, the rest of that's coming out of the general fund?
Just like all the rest of these
So it's not
departments.
self-sustaining, the EMS?
It's half, it's better than what it was. It was a quarter self-sustaining, now it's half self-sustaining. But also, that's been able to, the problem was, is before, that was all being burdened by the ad valorem. Okay, now what we're able to do is now, it's able to free us up to do other things and have some extra, some other revenues to support other departments as well. Or it supports itself, I should say.
And the Parks and Rec combined, or is that about what it used to be when they were one department?
They're not at, Brian would tell you they're not even half of what they used to be, am I right, Brian? He used to have about 15 employees, and now he's got about 3 or 4 employees.
So that includes the Rec department and the Park department?
So, could you go back, the area you were saying that is still not self-sustaining, what were you referring to?
EMS.
Okay.
Even though they bill to take you to the hospital, it's not covering
And
expenses.
EMS will never be self-sustaining, because currently, when we first got here, and Chief, correct me on these numbers, but we were running, I believe, about $450 every time you saw the ambulance with its lights on. It was about costing us about $450 for every run. We've got that down now to about $325. About $325. That's through better efficiency.
But what does Medicare pay?
But the problem is Medicare has dropped what they pay per ambulance ride.
They won't
But-
negotiate.
That's right. They don't negotiate. Here's what you're going to get. But the good news is we've set up new systems for billing software to bill these insurance companies and Medicaid, so that we're getting a turnaround time, and we're actually billing straight from the ambulance. So when they get your information, they plug it in the computer, it goes to Shirley, she checks it and hits a button, and it's gone. Versus before, we were doing it all by hand.
I think Medicare is like a flat rate of $100 is all they'll pay,
Yeah.
no matter what. You can bill them what you want, but
Yeah.
you're going to get $100.
Yeah,
Or whatever it is.
No matter what you do, you're never going to fully pay for ambulance. It's set up impossible. Like I say, a run now, the best we've got is about $325. That's on a normal run. That's with not life support. Life support's higher than that because of the drugs we have to use. This is on a normal run, is about $325. Medicare you get $100, and the insurances you get $125 to $150, somewhere in that range.
I thought they paid, like Capital Health paid the full
they'll
bill.
pay a little bit more, but the problem is you still don't get it all back. But we've brought down the cost, and we've increased our collections.
Is the recreation department, you're saying the budget is about the same, but we've got twice as many employees?
No, it's half what it used to be.
It's half.
We have half the budget with twice the employees?
No, half the employees. Well, actually,
Even
less than half.
Well, he said he
It's
went
about a
from
quarter of
15
the
to
employees.
33.
To 3.
Oh, from 15 to 3.
Is that right? Isn't that what you said, Brenda?
I'll have to take my ears back to Costco.
All right. So let's
Not to pick on EMS, but there isn't a single department in the general fund that sustains itself by the
Right.
revenue they collect.
Except the building.
They're not,
they're not in general fund.
yeah, they're not like the road department or the sewer department. There are enterprise funds.
Correct.
These are in the general.
All right, let's go to the next page, which is your general fund fund balance. We're going to end this, you'll see the negative 479,902. We'll end the year much better than that. This is based upon the budget, so therefore, but we will end the year. That'll probably be a negative, what would you say, Brandy? Maybe.
Mostly because
Maybe.
of ICE?
Huh?
Most
No,
because-
no, this is general fund.
General fund, okay.
This is, remember, we paid the sheriff's department, we had $600,000 that flowed out and a lot of that went to the sheriff's department, and then the cleanup out here. So that brought our fund balance down. Remember, we did that last year. That was a calculated move. So we're building it back this year, and we're going to come shy about $250,000, okay, of bringing it back. So you'll see how this year, this coming up year, as of right now, the tentative budget has us losing $79,423. As the way it stands right now, that would be a balance carry. We would just pull that out of our reserves and fund that if you guys were to agree to move forward. But I would suggest, I'm not asking you to agree right now to move forward or whatever, because we need to wait and see what our CHP increases, because if those do increase that much, we'll have to relook at some other stuff. But the $79,000 doesn't put us out of the realm of possibilities. You can see we're pretty much will run flat, and if property values do come back, then the general fund is in good shape, and it'll continue to be in good shape.
So we're dipping into our reserve, $79,000 in your budget.
Right.
We've got about $2 million there. We're going to take $80,000 of that out.
That's
to
right.
make up our budget.
That's right, and that includes it. That also covers the constitutional increase
Which I'm
as
fine
well.
with that, personally.
So, but I mean, that's something y'all don't have to decide today. So you don't have to decide today.
The only other way to not do that is raise taxes. I think we can decide that right now.
Well, that's what Greg had mentioned to me. Y'all could go to the roll-up rate to take care of that little bit, but I said that's probably going to fall on deaf ears.
Or cut more expenses, but I don't think Brian can take much.
But no, we've cut. I mean, I've cut. I actually cut a department, and we've trimmed down here and there, and we can continue to do that. The problem is I'm to where now I'm having to cut departments. So
if we hadn't cut, or if you hadn't cut, I'm sorry, code enforcement, that number would be 179 taken out of reserve, right?
I still want to talk about the rec department. I don't understand. We had 15 employees. We have 3 now. Is that right?
That's what Brian says. Yes.
So you're operating with 12 less employees? We have the same budget, or has the budget come down? David? I can't hear him.
Oh,
so.
he said the budget has decreased.
Yeah.
By half, right?
Right.
I'd have to look at the numbers,
Okay.
but it's all personnel. 75% of our budget right now is personnel, 75% personnel.
When Brian cut down at his lowest point, he was at $172,000 budget, and he's at $249 now. That was his lowest point, was 172 in recreation. Problem is, there again, we have fees that try to cover that, but it only covers, I think our fees add up to about $100,000, Brian. So the rest of it is borne by the general fund.
Which a lot of those fees didn't exist. These are the boat ramp fees, I guess, are
That's
capital
separate.
fees.
That's
those are
separate. This is T-ball, soccer,
Okay.
football, all that stuff.
And the TIFA and the program, sports programs pay for themselves. They pay for themselves. It's a business
Right.
program. Ad one pays for the salary of people, and if somebody breaks the fence, or breaks the bleacher, or lies or something.
So your programs pay for themselves, the soccer and whatever. So your cost is just maintenance of the facility.
And salaries.
And salaries. So that's where you're operating with 3 people in that realm?
One, two, probably 3.5.
Okay. And okay.
And
All right.
what about the revenue from like rental of buildings that goes into capital improvement or operations?
Part, that would be the part, that part
Okay. Moving right along. Building department fund. Our revenues continue to increase in our best efforts to lower fees, which is an unusually good problem to have.
We're going to lower them some more?
That's a possibility.
When can we do that?
on expenditures, software system is current, that's going to go up our software, also our gas that went up.
Hold on, let me grab it. You might want to get up there, because Commissioner Moore can't hear you.
I'm gonna take them back to Costco.
You don't need to get too detailed, James.
Yeah, we don't want to dive. But here's the basis of where we stand here. As one of the things is, James, we'll be coming to you guys, not this agenda, but the next agenda.
I'm gonna try to have it all together for that.
Our software that he works with, that does all of our building department stuff, you know, all the software that goes with that, the reporting, and tracking of everything. When Windows decided, or Microsoft, or whoever has that, they decided that they would no longer support Windows XP. That's what this operated on. The problem becomes, if one, the new software doesn't want to work right with this software, and if we leave it within Windows XP, they can't guarantee the security. So therefore, we're stuck.
Just went through the same thing.
That's right. So,
Okay,
from there.
so just the short version is we are gonna have some expenditures go up within the building department. We're gonna have to purchase a software program. The one we have is no longer supported. That's gonna be approximately $750 a month, which is middle of the road. It's most of them are user-based, how many users you have. Our gas bill has went up about 50% due to code enforcement activities. Gasoline. And we, in this last 4 weeks, have seen a whatever indicator that may be, a downturn in permits. I just caution everybody that just, you know, this is a big picture thing that's static. It's not something that goes even from year to year like ad valorem taxes. We've permitted probably more commercial jobs in the last 6 to 8 months than the last 5 or 6 years period. So yes, we've been on an uptake on permitting and fees being brought in. We're busy, but I wouldn't bank on that being
So
what's
you're
going to be
recommending
going
we
for.
don't lower building fees, in other words?
No, sir.
He would always
Well,
do that.
that's
Well, no,
where-
no, sir, we have plenty of money there in the fund, but it just, you don't want to bleed something
Well,
and do something that's gonna,
I
because we
understand.
know it, they're going, our fees are going up.
Lowered them not too long
I don't
ago.
care what you did.
Well,
Excuse me, I don't mean that rather
We.
Yeah, that's all right. But if we're sitting there with, what's the balance in that? 700,000?
It's 6 something if I remember
All
correctly.
right, so it's that divided by 12 is how much a month?
hold on, I'll tell you, I've got a projection here. I'll tell you what the real number's going to be.
How much a month is that? He's telling us that our expenses are gonna go up 20,000 a month, or 10,000, 15,000 a month? What?
No, sir, the expenses, my best guesstimate right now is $1,500 a month immediately is gonna be coming.
That's 18,000
Yes, sir.
a year. Yeah. But
All right,
But
here's where we're going to end the year. If we keep at the same run rates we got right now, we'll end the year with a revenue of $375,394 and expense of $327,404. If that is if I threw a bunch of stuff in there. A profit of $47,000. We'll end the year this year with almost $700,000 in the bank.
But if we just take income and expense, we're gonna have a profit this year anyway.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be setting with 700,000 on the books.
Yeah.
We can drop the prices.
Which is
Well-
700% of our fund balance policy. 7 times our fund balance policy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
but we
skimming-
can-
you're
I'm
skimming-
not hitting him. He can still buy what he needs.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely
Well,
no
we are.
reason.
We got to get through this year, and then we'll see what we need to set them at for next year.
You got the opposite problem of everyone else. Too much money.
That's not a bad place to be.
I'm after him because I got to put a ladder on the 412 roof. And it's
That's not his fault.
We owe a lot of that to Johnny Ross, too, who over the years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Manage that right, and
I hate to see somebody paying a fee when we're sitting with a $700,000 balance and we're making a profit even in a bad year, this year.
I think the long-term projections from the accounting department is we will actually be depleting that in, what, 5
If you
to
look
6
at
years?
the run rate right now that we've got, realize I don't have that we show this fund running out in 1920 if we keep this same level. So
That's with the same permit fees. We're gonna deplete it. That's
but
coming.
I mean, we got
That doesn't accommodate, that doesn't accommodate for an increase in the economy.
no,
That's where you are.
it's a
just
very
stay flat.
minimal increase.
Sir?
A very minimal increase.
And you're
All right.
skimming 15,000 a year off of,
Yes.
that's the most
Oh,
you can
okay.
get off of them?
As of right now, that's the most I can justify. This one, we have to be careful at. We got to justify it very closely. Okay, next one is the Sheriff's Fine and Forfeiture Fund. But I know Randy's getting hungry. Next one is Sheriff's Fine and Forfeiture Fund.
I guess we can do.
The sheriff requested his budget this year was for $9,758,507, there and thereabouts, and the best that we can fund them is a $7,359,199, $2 million of I think we all agree on $2 million for budget purposes for the jail bed fund, because right now we're on a run rate of, Mary Dean just sent the information over here, we'll probably hit 2.1 maybe this year if it keeps that rate. Well, yeah, but I was the average of where we stand today is, if you just average what we've collected to date, not pushing forward, is 2.1. That's what I mean.
They won't give you a signed contract saying that, will they?
And the good news is, if we budget best way to get out of this, we need to start budgeting our way out of this fund, is if it does next year come at 2.4, that needs to go straight to the bottom line and help cure this fund. Okay?
To their reserve.
Down to their fund balance to get it, because as you can see here now, you know, we can only fund them. That's the problem, is there's no more money. So the best that we can do is 7.3, which is a $9.3 million fund that we can, or that with a $2 million jail bed, that gives us $9.3 million in revenue, and they're spending at a 9.7 clip. They made changes this year and cut 350, but what needs to happen next year is, unless that revenue comes back, they need to continue over the years a continual march towards bringing that number down, unless this revenue comes back up, because the problem is we're fighting two declining revenues, ad valorem, and we're fighting
Well,
the other.
the only way you could really do it with jail bed is to have something in writing saying, here's a guaranteed amount for the next 5 years, then you could budget for that, but.
It makes it very difficult. But the good news is we bought ourselves this coming up year and next year with what they've done. Like I'm saying, is in probably a third year. But we need to continue that on unless this revenue starts to catch itself up.
Mary Dean, what were some numbers from a few years ago that y'all used to get from ICE prisoners? Over $3 million.
So you see that the problem that it's not a problem. The good news is it's better. I thank Charlie and Mary Dean for their efforts and what they've done, but you know, it's like an old business I was in, is what you did for me last year, what are you going to do for me this year? So if this fund, if Mary Dean is right, and that hopefully she is, it'll be 2.3 or 2.4 this year. That helps it out tremendously, and that makes a big difference. But we still need to continue to watch that, and I think maybe putting together some long-term things as folks retire, either look at, you know, not replacing that position or hiring in somebody at a lower level, whatever. However, he's doing a good job right now. We need to continue to do that until these revenues start to rebound. All right. Fund 160. Please, favorite department. Excuse me.
Ours isn't on that. It goes to Fund 180.
Yeah. Brandy.
Brenda?
Brenda. All right, I got it.
They
I got
have
it.
the old version, they don't have the
No,
updated one I...
no, that's all right. We got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. See what Brenda does to me? All right, y'all flip. Are y'all at this page right here?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. This has been hotly debated. Right now, the Fire MSBU handles all operating of our VFDs, our full-time firefighters, both from an operational standpoint and a capital purchase standpoint, okay? if we continue that and we gotta replace equipment, we're gonna have to increase the MSBU. That would have to go up. Now, what I'm asking you guys is let's change that up a little bit. You don't have to, all we have to do is I can do this. But let's take all the capital purchase, save one, and I'll bring that up. All the capital equipment purchases come out of the public safety 1-cent sales tax. Mary Dean has said they can give that up for the next 5 years, and we'll take that and we'll I'll just see if she's paying attention. We'll readjust the
I don't really like that idea, to be honest with you.
well, let us work it out,
I'd
because
rather
here's
raise
your
the
problem.
MSBU personally than take money that we could reallocate that money to the Parks Department.
You're not talking about that much money. And I think when you see the mechanics when we work it out, it's much more palatable. It makes sense. It's what public safety 1-cent sales tax should be for. I'm not saying, it's for EMS, sheriff, and fire is what it should
That's
be.
covering all their capital expenses, and it's not much money?
And it's not that bad, not on a per year basis. Okay? Because, realize their purchases are big purchases when they purchase, but they don't have to replace the fire engine every year like Mary Dean has to replace trucks, every other year. There's some that we need to replace today, but not, but
What's our MSBU now, 85?
75.
And it was
I have-
recommended as being what? What did the study recommend it should be? It was like 100 and something.
Oh, yeah, the study has it over 100, yeah.
I ask you a question basically, is that, you can do your shifting so long as we don't increase fees or taxes.
And that's what I'm talking about.
All right. Now let's just say that you've made your shifts in this department. What about where you're shifting the money from? Are we gonna have to increase fees or taxes to cover
No.
what you shifted?
No.
Somebody get by with less.
It didn't just come
No.
out of thin air, obviously.
No.
Somebody's getting one.
I don't
No,
trust
no,
David on his money.
No, trust me. Trust me. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
You
cool.
say tomato, I say tomato.
Yeah, okay.
I'll show you. That'll be coming up.
It wasn't too long ago that the MSBU fund, the fire department fund, was it was a significant pot of money.
It's a significant amount of money. Go to your
No,
next
but I'm
page.
saying before, and we ended up as a county going in there and raiding that.
Did you really?
Yes, we did. We demolished it.
Well, maybe that's the reason
that was
it's in the
before my
shape it
time.
is today.
It was, but you were still living here.
Huh?
You were still living here.
Still living here, like I was in high school.
You must have had Cleve's job at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the few.
I hired Nanette, too, by the way.
It was one of the good move. It was one of the few divisions of our financial page that was always solvent and rocked right along. So it is something we should look back at and see how this
Well, in
happened.
2010, we ended 2010 according to this spreadsheet. Now, it gets kind of sketchy the older you get, but we had a fund balance of $713,000 at the end of the fiscal year 2010-11. And this year, we're projecting we'll have a fund balance end of $754,066.
I think he's talking about years prior
Yeah,
to
it's
that.
years
But
prior.
that's what I'm saying. That's all I've got. So,
See, it's a new ballgame right now, and
yeah. Now, let's go back to what we were talking about.
yes.
The fire MSBU fund, we factored in a 1% increase for population increase, which we've hit that about every year, for $1,068,000 in total revenue. Now, and then all of our expenses to run the fire stations come out of this. Flip to the next page. You'll see in the tentative budget, you'll read down there and you'll see capital outlay, which is about halfway down. You'll see $600,000. Okay? That's for a new building. That's for half of a new building. We got to build a new fire station and a new EMS facility over at Trice Lane. Now, I personally, I would not recommend that we have it out of cash to spend. We can spend that $600,000, we'll spend down our fund balance, and we'll get our fund balance back in 2 years. I would recommend that we would, and I know Commissioner Thomas is gonna shoot me a stare, we should...
I'm gonna talk about it.
We should borrow that money, because even if it's over a 5-year period, we can do a whole lot more in that 5-year period if we amortize that out. So, but that's something we need to talk about. I'm gonna leave it in the budget the way it is, and we'll when that time comes, we'll discuss that.
Where are you on the page?
About halfway down, says $600,000, a little red. Now, if you notice, we've carved out all of the capital except for capital equipment at $50,000 a year, and that's for their miscellaneous fire hoses, etc., a whole bunch of stuff. The problem with this fund, the reason it was tanking in the past when we ran our projections out, was because of having to pay for the fire trucks, because you didn't have enough fund balance to pay for the fire trucks in cash, but then when you amortize it out, you still had the same problem. So that's the reason I'm saying that we need to shift that over to the 1 cent sales tax. Then this fund, as you can see, operates. I mean, it clicks, it hums right along at a good rate. It sustains itself. It's not overburdened. It doesn't collect too much. And there's possibilities we could fund half out of the, fund something, pay for half of it out of the MSBU and half of it out of 1 cent sales tax in 1 year. So the fund is functional enough to bring in its profits about $66,000 to $58,000 a year, but it goes down as expenses increase.
What's that $20,000 a year interfund transfer into them?
That is which one is that?
That's the hardship exemptions.
Your hardship
That
exemptions.
has to be funded by the general fund.
Okay.
What is the reason, or you may have explained it and I may have missed it, for about a $200,000 reduction in the maintenance and repair?
I haven't got there yet.
Last
Oh.
year, we budgeted some large repairs for Station 8.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
$200,000 was just for one station.
Right.
I was-
And we're in the process of spending that money
It
now,
hasn't been done yet.
but we're getting ready to.
Okay.
Bids are going out.
That's for the new roof, I assume.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So that's the reason for that reduction. Now, one of the things that we've talked about, and we had some conversations about the MSBU and our lack of volunteer force, and something I'm going to talk to the chief about, and we're going to look at is, we've tried every daggone program there is out there, but one of the things that a couple commissioners have asked about, as well as Steve has asked about it as well, is what about increasing the stipend? That's something we're going to look at. Chief doesn't think it'll cost us that much out of here. As you can see, we have the fund balance to do it. So that's something we're going to look at and bring back to you on the final budget, and bring a program back that does do that, because that's the only thing we haven't tried. We've done everything else. We feel like we pulled every trick not trick, but every possible mechanism we can. We've cross-trained our paid personnel, both in fire and EMS, so that we have more firefighters we can put on it. We're consolidating the northern part of the county because of lack of membership, and that should help save us a little bit of money, not that much. Still have to do the same things, but we feel like that this will be one of the last things that we can do, and if this doesn't work, I don't know what to do.
So where's our stipend on here?
Where does that stipend fall there, Brenda?
It's on the first page of fire department,
Okay, do you have the amount of that stipend?
$25,000.
Brittany, what's the $40,000
Gotcha.
What's the $40,000 for?
interfund transfer?
That's to the general fund.
So that's skimming off them for the...
Where is that on this sheet? I'm at the fire and MSBU 180 fund.
40,000, that's what I'm at.
Is it 40? That interfund transfer is for what now?
That goes to the general fund.
Yeah, but, okay.
Skimming off them.
Where are we talking about the stipend?
Stipend is,
The bottom of the first page.
Yeah.
To the bottom.
says
Third one from the
stipend, it's the
bottom.
third from the bottom.
$25,000.
No, not that one.
Now, that's the number that you plugged in to incentivize the...
That's based on the way it is today. That's not what we talked about, myself and
Yeah.
and
I
Mr. Thomas
recommended
brought
to
it
you
up
that
as
I
well.
won't give you a number.
So did Randy.
Sir?
And so did Randy. We'll come back with you a number. Please don't.
I'm not, I understand that.
Okay.
That's what our volunteer guys, they get about $10 every
Right.
time they go fight a fire.
I'm not telling him what to put in, but I'm telling him that basically everybody operates better with incentive.
Amen.
And I'm also, I won't step across your border, but my idea is we need 4 people. You know, that's what the ISO
Right.
needs. We need 4 people there when the bell goes off. If you just increase those 4, if you give those 4 an increase to make everybody make a dash for the fire station, and the first 4 that get there...
First 4 get paid?
I'm as serious as I can be. Pay the people who show up first.
I think
What-
Steve's usually there first. He'll get his.
Yeah, but basically, you know, right now, they show up after the fire's over.
Well, Chief and I are going to be talking about this because he studied. He has data from other counties and what they do. There are a lot of people do stipends different ways, and we're going to study that and bring it back to you.
Yeah, but we're better than a lot of places.
Well, I like to glean what other people are doing. Maybe if there's a good idea for Wakulla
Not to
County.
beat this to death, but a lot of times people just want to feel appreciated, too.
Yeah, I agree.
Or
And we need to
awards
help them
or
out because it's
whatever.
been $10. I don't know, forever. I reckon.
Well, I wouldn't even get my car for $10 unless I really like to fight fires.
Yeah.
You can't buy a gallon of gas.
Can't buy many.
Especially Ralph, he can't buy many at all. That big old.
So I don't think we want to, I mean,
No.
there are other things to do. There are other ideas out there, but I agree we should look at this.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. 1 cent sales tax, we're not going to talk about that yet because we've still got some bills coming in from the community center as well as the annex, and so we got to redevelop this budget, so that's the reason we're kind of held off on this. Go to the next page. Sewer operating fund. All right, this fund, this year, the USDA loan doesn't necessarily affect it as per the budget that I've generated, but it affects, as you can see, next year and the years out. So, what you'll see here in the first 3 to 4 lines is our revenues coming in from sewer fees from Sopchoppy, Paws, sewer fees from Talcon, and then this year we're able to add Oyster Bay sewer fees at $35,000. We don't have a full year run rate on Oyster Bay, but the way the projection was to work that we inherited, that it should be $35,000 this year. So that number could be low, that number could be high, but right now our run rates that we have, we've been billing since January, it's going to be pretty close.
Oyster Bay is, say that again, how is that tied to, shouldn't that be
Oyster
part of the
Bay-
Talcon sewer? It's Talcon, isn't it?
No, this is the bulk deal that we have with Talcon. This is Shell Point, Oyster Bay, that area where they pay us
Right,
per
right,
thousand.
Right.
Have they deactivated that pumping station on Crossover Road or whatever?
Cleve?
Cutoff road.
Cut off?
Yes, it's the
So that's out of the system and the pumping on 98's working.
Your lift station.
My station's working.
Your
It doesn't
station's
even
working.
smell, Cleve. You better not let it smell.
Now, these fees from Sopchoppy and Paws are those really represent a lot of Crawfordville. They're not, the city of Sopchoppy doesn't generate that much.
That's right. These are that's Sopchoppy water system. Now, Paws includes Oclocny Bay, Panacea, Surf Road, which I reckon it is, Road Bay. So as you can see, our revenues this year go down, and you'll see where I've got loan proceeds as the way we account for stuff and governmental accounting, which I disagree with, but that's a long conversation. We have to put the loan in there as a revenue and then jack it out, which it increases your revenues to a false revenue. Anyway, but that's a long conversation that myself and Greg and Brittany have had. Anyway, you'll see that our revenues are 4.9 minus $3.4 million, and that'll give you what our real revenues are. there. And you'll see that the loan proceeds will flow out. And the way this USDA loan to build the new treatment plant will work is you have to, and Mary will be here if she's not here already. The way they have it set up is your loan, they'll give us a loan amount, which that loan amount will be, as the way it stands today, excuse me, that loan amount is $7,225,211. The grant amount is $3.1 million. We're going to roll up, if we agree to it, we're going to roll up $2.6 million worth of existing debt and pay it off. All right. The way it works, though, is you get the grant portion at the end, meaning you got to we'll pay for our roll up of our debt, then we use up all of the loan amount, then what's left over on the project goes into the grant. So you can't use the grant and then lower your lower your thing. That they've already figured that out. So you'll notice we have construction proceeds lasting 3 years, then we have grant proceeds kicking in 16-17 and going out to 17-18. Okay, now this construction schedule, we got to continue to work on it, but the plan will be done, I'd say probably the end of 2017. But that's the way this thing will end up flowing from a revenue standpoint and expense. Your expenses down below, if you flip the page. You'll see the revenues, or the expenses flow out in the yellow highlighted 3.4, and they reflect the entire cost of the job, which is over $10 million. You'll notice also in here the loan principal, the loan amount underneath that. The first 2 years of this loan will be interest only. The interest is about $234,000 a year for the first 2 years. Then we kick in principal. I've got that factored in the fact that I'm only paying 1 year's worth of I've left in 14-15, left in the principal and interest amounts that we're going to pay on our existing loans. Realize halfway through the year we're going to pay those off, so we'll have half of that, which should cover that amount. Another thing to look at on this sheet is up one from that highlighted portion. You'll see capital outlay equipment, $410,000. That is for our normal $110,000 a year for lift station replacement, but $300,000 for the Hickory Park lift station that we're working on right now. It'll take every bit of that to get that lift station rehab.
But you didn't have to pull that out of ad valorem then?
No.
I mean, out of general fund.
I think we're good here, and especially with us getting this USDA loan grant program, if we proceed with that, that will help us out tremendously. You'll also notice on here, and one of the things that I'm going to make sure that we do, and make sure you guys agree to it and we'll set it in stone, is, if you'll notice, I just stuck it in here. It's right under the highlighted section there, and it's over in year 17-18. It's $51,659, and you'll see where those numbers pick up there. What that is that's the tap fees, the access fees that we collected that year. Here's what I'm saying. Once we reach fund balance, which that's when that'll reach fund balance in this fund, let's take the access fees that we collect and let's put in there to go against principal. Because if we do that, this is a 40-year loan. If we do that based on my projections, and if we just averaged out, we'll pay the loan off in 30 years and still have over 1,500 connections. So we'll get out of, we're upside down now, and that'll get us out of being upside down. And it will also allow us to have a fund balance so that we don't have to borrow as much the next time we have to expand our plant. We can almost pay for half of the next expansion through that. What it is, the problem is right now we're upside down. We have loan left over to pay and no tap fees to access it against. Okay. All right. So this fund's doing pretty good. As you can see, the next page, sewer operating fund. We've got a healthy fund balance, and we'll hit fund balance, and it should be. This is unusual. We've set this up, and I'm still waiting for the other shoe to fall. But you never make money in sewer, but we're making money in sewer. So, but we have to have it because it's a very expensive operation.
And taking 40 of that profit to help pay Mary Dean.
That's right. Mary Dean's getting a direct impact from the sewer fund. No, you can't have both. That's another thing. We got to renegotiate our sewer rates with the school. So what I'm going to suggest, because right now we're giving it away, but everybody needs to pay equitably. So I'm going to come back to you guys with a governmental rate that makes sense, that covers our costs, but yet makes sense from a.
And that would include Mary Dean.
That would include Mary Dean. That's right.
So we're making money even with all of the generators and things that we have out at these lift stations.
As of right now. Now understand, the only way we're making money is because we're continuing to add on customers. That is going to end this year. So at some point in time, we would start losing money if we don't expand. We've got to expand. So
You're making money because you're adding on customers. Why should you think that we're not going to continue adding on customers?
that's what I'm saying. If you didn't, the plant's at capacity,
Yeah, okay, I got you.
and it can't have any more. We're stuffing.
You can make money. I'm paying about $70 a month on a particular piece of property, and we use no water.
Thank you. Let's go to the next fund, which is solid waste. This is one that's come back pretty good. Now, the biggest controversy here, if it is anything, is Waste Pro is asking for the first 2 years they hadn't asked for it, but this year they're asking for their CPI increase of 2.33%, which will take the average person's bill from $196 to $199. I looked at different ways could we, forego that by a year. The answer to that is no.
What do you mean?
That as far as in having to increase our customers, if you increase it one-on-one, which it's allowed, by their contract, they can increase it. We can't. This fund will tank itself if we don't do a one-for-one increase. If solid waste, Waste Pro increases by $1, we have to increase by $1.
I understand that. So are we locked into the 199?
No,
Is
we're
that
not locked in.
negotiable?
I'm just recommending that all I'm saying is we do a one-to-one. That's what this.
What's the CIP? CPI rather.
I'd have to look it up, Dr. Kessler.
They can justify the
They
199.
justified. Yeah, they justified it.
By their contract.
Yeah. I can't remember. What was it? I can't remember. Well, they use an index, which they use an approved index, and it's as per their contract, they can do it. But as you see, the problem is if we didn't have the closure having to come out of this, we could probably absorb it. With the closure cost having to come out of this fund, the closure of the landfill, we can't afford not to do that.
Does that ever stop?
Huh?
Does
Yeah.
the closure ever stop? When does it stop?
It'll be about a year project, year and a half.
Until a year?
No, we got to close. We got to cap it. It's capping of the landfill. Then after that, it's $70,588 a year for. Excuse me, no, I'm wrong. Hold on.
So while you're looking that up,
$70,588 a year thereafter. And 75. That's for one, and then 75,000 for the other.
So a year and a half from now, we would technically be able to absorb this.
If we had the note paid out. The problem is right now we're looking at a $600,000 note.
But that only goes for another year and a half?
That's for the construction. We got 400,000 in here. We're going, the cost to close the landfill is going to cost $1 million. We've got 400,000 sitting aside in a fund over on the side for that. We've got to get another 600,000 to add to that. And that's what I'm saying. If we amortize that out, that adds hold on. That adds every year roughly about $70-something thousand in between principal and interest over a 10-year period that we'll have to cover. Then after that, we could theoretically go down on our rate. Now, if you do the math in here, here's the way the math works. Is the difference between the revised budget this is on the residential, and the tentative budget is 1.0333% or 3.33% increase. And all that is, it's really a 2.3% increase, but I factored in the 1% increase for the growth. Okay? That's not factored in the rate. That's just a growth factor for revenue. So when you do the math, you're going to say, wait just a minute, David, that's a % higher. That's why. That doesn't mean, all we're saying is that we're going to recommend that I've ran the numbers and I can show it to you and run it with you guys. We cannot afford not to pass this along to our customers.
There's more people paying the solid waste.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every new house that builds gets added on.
Every new house, and that helps, but the
That's
problem
the
is...
1% you're talking about.
Yeah, but the problem is, well, I also put that 1% on the expense, because every house that comes on board, you know, Waste Pro charges for it, and we collect for it, so it washes itself out. So the problem is, the good news is this fund's in good shape. The bad news is if we had already closed the landfill, and we could sustain, because if you flip to your
David,
fund balance.
is this going to be in this year's budget automatic? You know, so if we vote for the whole budget, it's going to automatically have in there it being 199 instead of 196.
Well, we'll get you that exact number. I don't know what that number is. We're just saying 199, but
So we won't
that
be able to
actually
vote on this one
2.33.
issue. We won't be able to singly vote on this one issue. It'll just be.
Yeah, y'all can vote on what you want to.
We can cut it out. We can leave it
You
at
can cut it out.
196.
You can do what you want.
I'm just-
service if we wanted to.
I
Somebody's got to pay
understand.
for it.
Well, that's what's important also about not just accepting the 199 figure. I understand that they may be able to justify, but I think we have to look at what we've agreed to, and if it's non-negotiable, then it's non-negotiable. If it's
We've already done
negotiable-
that. We've already vetted it and everything, and they tried a whole bunch of stuff, but Nanette, the person that you hired, she did a very good job of catching all of that, and but it's as per their contract. Y'all can review it, and it's as per their contract. And
Not to put you on the spot, but how much of that 196 actually goes to Waste Pro for garbage service for that one house? I know some of it's for landfill closure, some of it's for 183. All right, so I think what he's saying is once we get the landfill closure behind us, we could probably lower that
That's
down a little
right.
bit, because that expense will be paid for.
But how soon will we be able to close? What's the
2 years, you
closing
said?
time?
10 years.
No.
No, it'll take 2 years, but it'll take, unless we borrow that money internally, if we go outside, it'll be 10 years.
So we can't do, theoretically,
We don't have the fund balance to pay for it.
pay for it, and
That's right.
theoretically, it'd take another 10 years where we could look at lowering
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Because you got to have those proceeds to pay the loan payment now.
So we'd like to see, at least as a board, I think, that section that deals with the increase and the formula.
Sure.
It's indexed to the fuel costs, I think.
No,
right,
no,
Janet?
it's not fuel costs. They didn't go up on fuel, which I was surprised. In the
CPI.
contract, then goes fuel and CPI increase. They just went to CPI.
So they didn't do a fuel increase. Wow.
Which is unusual.
As it was when it started. It's probably higher.
I see that it can easily be justified. Anybody can justify it,
Sure.
but our employees can justify that they fall under the same CPI, and we haven't given them raises. All of our budgets have been shrinking, and we just said that we're operating on $2 million less than we were in 2010. So even though I feel for them, they're in the same category with all the rest of us. And so, you know, I don't think, even though they can justify it, that doesn't mean that we're not required to just do it just because
Yeah,
they can
we are.
justify
Yes,
it.
we absolutely
We're
are.
contractually bound.
How is that? Why is it subject to our approval?
Because I think that's what the
Oh,
board...
no, they're contractor bound, they can up it. All I'm saying is, to meet theirs, we're gonna have to up ours.
Their 183 that we're paying them to service my house, they can now start charging 184.
Well, we keep, what, 9% of the total, right? Or at least that's what we started at.
I think what he's saying is we can leave it at 196, but
It's gonna
we
eat
have to make
into
a-
our 9%.
That's right, yeah.
And I agree
the-
with him. If they raise $1, we need to raise the assessment $1 to keep this thing, because it was in bad shape a few years ago.
When we come
I
to,
need to look at that
when we come to voting on the budget, can I vote on a particular item outside the entire budget?
You'll vote on the budget as a whole, and by then, we'll have, hopefully have negotiated this out with you guys,
Go
so you
talk to
vote on the
David.
entire budget.
Okay.
But that's something I think what y'all need to do, if I was you guys, is, you know, let's continue to talk to myself and Cleve and Annette, and let us show you the contract. You read it, because y'all may have a different take on it, but we've had our attorneys read it, and the contract that we were given, it clearly states this is
So
their
if
allowable
if it's
increase.
solely their discretion, how come they haven't exercised that every year?
Their
fault.
Their fault.
They should
They're
have.
supposed to do it by May, what is it, May
Do
1st?
they have enough fat
May
in it?
1st of every year?
They
they
tried to
have
get
enough
3
fat in
years.
it?
They tried to get 3 years, and we
They
said,
can't
no, it don't
have
work like that.
I'll review the
Yeah,
contract.
review it.
Dropped the ball last 2
So,
years.
you know, one of the things that I guess I'm concerned about is that, and I think Randy, and I'm sure Ralph is also concerned about, is, you know, we look at the different areas, and we go down this path that you're spelling out for us, and we're saying how we have to do better, and we're trying to keep our head above ground, and yet we need to look at cuts. We really need to look at cuts. And so, and this is maybe jumping back to the beginning, when you said 2% across the board for our employees, I don't have a problem giving our employees a cost of living increase. I do think that we all have to be pulling our weight with this, and when I asked about administration, I think, I don't know, it was last year that we gave a severance package of whatever it was, $55,000 to the administrator, to you, David. I mean, we approved it.
Oh, yeah. You're
Right,
talking
I
about
mean-
if I was, yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
a big thing to put the county on the hook for, and then to say that you want to be included in a 2% raise for the employees. I have a little bit of a problem with that, so I'll speak up to it. So that's just my opinion, and you guys think about it as you want to think about it.
Well, my 2%'s not gonna cover this $600,000
I understand, but every little bit helps.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Questions? That was your next slide. I was getting ahead of you.
There you go. Well, thank you, Randy. Questions?
Well, I have a question.
All right.
If I don't like a part of the budget, and I come to you and we discuss it, and you say it's 2, and I want 1, basically,
Vote against the budget. That's all you can do.
I have
Yeah.
to vote against the whole budget?
Or we can bring it up. If 2 of us agree with you, we can carve it out.
But they
there.
may not agree on something else, so.
Right.
And then we may be like we were at the budget last year.
We may
when
be
Richard
Congress.
wasn't here, and it was gonna be a 2-2 vote if I hadn't voted for it, and we wouldn't have had a budget right now. It would've failed. We'd have been just like Washington, D.C.
But those things can be worked out.
Yeah, that's easy
It can
stuff.
never be like
That's
Washington,
easy stuff.
D.C. We can't ever.
I mean, that solid waste thing, we can work that out.
Best thing is
because
to
it-
work it all out well in advance and get every
Yeah. I
gotta-
concern.
Well, because the
satisfied.
problem is it's like Ralph says, you know, do we have to give it to them? And the opinions that I've been getting is yes.
To pay the debt
Right.
on the borrowed money, how many dollars? On this negative and this increase in the solid waste.
You're talking about that was about 70,000 a year.
So that's 70,000 a year, but
Times
well,
10
that's
years.
6,000 a month.
And don't forget, we're still
Times
trying to
10
build a
years.
reserve up in solid
I
waste,
understand that.
too.
But I can also remember, and nobody ever says anything about this, it sort of slid under the radar. When we were talking about the solid waste, increasing the fee and hiring Waste Pro and whatever, there was a little item in there of the, not the garbage, but the other part of it, the
Recycling.
recycling. that we never, we
You
we
gave
made,
that up.
we made money off of that.
Well, y'all gave that up,
It's part of the deal.
part of the deal.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
The problem becomes this, and is if every year they're gonna get into the mode of every year they're bringing an
We
increase.
voted against it.
You've got to, the problem is you're gonna say, okay, you don't do it this year, and all of a sudden next year you're gonna hit the population
It's
with
like health
a
insurance.
$10 or $15 increase. And it, everything goes up. Price of stuff is not gonna stay the same. It's not gonna do that. So everything's continually to go up. You know that by going to the grocery store. So, but to me, do we need to I would say any increase, if we can't afford to cover it, yes, that needs to go, because we're not doing a service by saying we're not gonna charge it, and all of a sudden we hit them with a big one at the end
Don't wanna
in
put
4 years.
Cleve on the
That's
spot,
not
but
fair.
Is his contract still tied to CPI, or? So
Yep.
he's in the same exact situation. He
Yeah.
says, here's my contract, CPI is this.
But I think
here's
he's
my
held it
$100.
flat though, right?
No, they
I think he's
increased
held it.
last year.
And that's
And this year.
fine, that's what we agreed to, and there's nothing wrong with
That's what we
that.
agreed to with Waste Pro too.
And that's the same thing with Waste
I encourage
Pro.
you to look,
No, and that's fine, whatever it is, it is. I'm just saying we should look at it and make sure that's what it is.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What is our exemption amount for the solid waste exemptions?
Hold on a second.
And are we gonna stick with the same income levels, which I think is very low income?
Yeah, it looks like,
Recommend
according to the preliminary numbers that we're getting right now, it's
We
gonna
were
be about
using
the
the-
same way as it was last year.
I think we were in the same HUD levels, right?
Maybe
Same
just a hair
levels.
less.
Very low, right?
Is it on here? I don't see it on the expenses.
Brittany?
Hold on just a sec, Ralph, I'm gonna get to
It's
it.
wrapped up in an interfund transfer, but I think Friday, the number was 160 something, and they had till Monday in order to apply.
But I'm saying the income level, we said.
160,000?
Very low.
No.
No.
That number, 53,034 last year, and we're budgeting 50,000 this year.
So that's for the county stepping in and
That's
picking
where,
up
that comes from the general fund.
And they also get, that same person gets the $75 waived for MSB,
Yes.
typically.
That's right.
Qualify.
That's right. It's
There's
both are
$93,000.
the same, that's right.
All right, so that time for a hamburger.
Do we have any more questions?
Y'all have any questions, constitutionals?
Just one thing I want to say is while we're at this, I just want to thank each and every constitutional officer for everything you do in your department. I've spent the last 9 years working in a neighboring county and talked to people that also live in other counties, and regardless of what department it is, everybody in other counties that I meet, they're constantly bragging on every single one of, not just one of our department, but whether it's property appraiser, tax collector, sheriff's office, or whatever, they're looking and seeing the things that we're doing compared to what they're doing, and they're constantly praising each and every department, and that's a real credit to everybody. Just wanted to let you know we're real thankful and grateful for what each of you do in your areas.
You look like a real rowdy bunch back there, too.
They're
Do we-
good Baptists.
Do we have a ballpark idea of the number of counties that are starting to recover? Looks like, from what I'm hearing, most are already well into a recovery, and seems like we're still bumping along the bottom.
I've got that here, hold on, I can tell you.
Leon County is definitely recovering.
We're only one of, I think there's about 6 counties that declined, and we're on the top of the state. Everybody else went up.
Their inventory in Leon County now, I think it's down to like a month, isn't it, Donnie? It was as high as a year or 13 months of inventory on
Here, I'll,
homes.
Mm-hmm.
well,
We gotta have new construction to offset depreciation too, right?
yeah,
You might,
out of the,
you might come up to the podium.
yeah, he can't hear anything. But while he's coming up here, Wakulla County last year, we decreased
I have to turn these things
We
up.
decreased by 4.46%. in property values. We were the highest in the state of decrease, and we absorbed it without going to the rollback. And we roll up. So in Baker County, Baker County, Baker County was number 18, and they were at 0.09%, and thereafter they either were at level or went above, and that was there was 18 counties that had decrease in property values. We were the number one at 4.4%. Number two was 3.86, which was Liberty County.
This was this past budget year.
This past year.
This budget year, we're figuring
1.55.
1.55.
You know, I'm very optimistic that we're going to come in less than 1, and it's very possible that you could break even or better. And like I say, there's some of the things that we're increasing. They go to VAB, the VAB turns it down, then that's going to that's going to pull off. That's the reason I give you at the time I give the estimate, that was what it was, but we're still producing the road. But you got to realize that the new construction, you're a year to a year and a half before you see that hit the tax roll. So that's what kind of drags you behind. But there's some things that's going to take place this year. The new FEMA maps, they could very well have an effect on your values. They take place in September, I believe. What happens with the wetland ordinance could very much have an impact on the tax roll. So these are things that are down the road, and it may take 2 or 3 years, depending on what happens there, to see how it affects the road, because it's going to take sales. But there's stuff out there that is very controversial and could cause problems. But I'm looking at values specifically on the coast. You see 2 or 3 up, 3 or 4 down. There's not that big a difference between them, so you're starting to see some things level out, which we've got to level out before we can turn around. But we're getting closer.
Thank you.
So, one of the things I want to mention, a couple of things I want to mention is, as we're going through this and we're working on this budget, I think we need to think about things that we need to fund better. And one of them is our library. Okay? And I'm going to be bringing to you some statistics on what we've been doing and what the Friends have been doing, and suggest to you that some changes. And the other thing I want us to think about also is in the funding of the health care that's provided through the We Care network. That provides a lot of health care for our county. So we've been funding that, and I think we at least have to fund it at the levels we have been or better.
5,000, is that what we did last year?
I believe so. It's in that area. Yep.
To give you all an idea, I don't have, I was trying to email it. I can email this to you guys. But to give you an idea, if you were to look at just the local taxes that are the PST, CST, and the ad valorem, just to give you an idea, in 2007, 06, 07, that number collected, which naturally wasn't the PST, that number was $11.4 million, almost 11.5. I would say 11.5 right at it. And this year, that number is 10.1. That's property values, but also the interesting thing is the diversification of revenue. In 06, 07, ad valorem collected 97% of the county's revenue, which was 11.1 million. This year, that's 8.3 million, and which is 82%. The PST is 838,000 for this past year. Excuse me, 1,029,000, and the CST is 838,000.
So what's the projection on the direction of those two?
The PST will continue to plug along the way it's doing. The CST, there's a possibility it could go away. There is a distinct possibility.
What do you mean by that?
You talking about next year?
No, not next year. It's we've got it projected in our projections to go down and potentially go away over the next 5 years. It's voice over, what is that? Voice over
Internet.
That's going, there's no way to tax that, and states looking at it, the providers are going to that. And so there's a possibility that that revenue could either tail off tremendously or go to where...
But that'd be after the session next year.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Cell
this
phones
is-
are going voice over IP?
So we've said the state revenue is slight increase, ad valorem slight decrease, and what about CST and PST?
the CST was a very slight increase, and the PST was up $100,000, I think. That's what we projected for this year.
Okay. Thank you.
And so all of that makes for good conversation of looking over what we
Well, that goes,
make.
yeah, but it goes to show you, you know, how, you know, even when we enacted the PST, and increased the CST, ad valorem went from 10 million down to 8, or 8.9. So, I mean, it was an offset there of that amount. So, but the good news is it's diversified. It went from when it first started at 97%, 86%, 83, now it's at 82, and I don't know what it'll be this year. It'll be less than that. Okay.
We got
Any
20
questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
We got 25 minutes till the meeting starts, so if there's no more, is there citizens, anybody want to speak?
Go up to the,
Come on up
go
to
up
the
to the
mic.
mic, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners and Administrator. Just a couple of quick observations. You know, in the areas that we're having some problems, I would think that maybe take a look at who the contractor is for capping that landfill and see if you might be able to work maybe a little bit better deal. That's a lot of money. You're looking at, what, about $1 million to do that? Is that right?
Those bids haven't went out yet.
They haven't gone out yet.
No.
So this is projection. That could go down if
That
you
could
really
go down. That's the latest projection from the
beat somebody
engineer.
up. Okay, well, I'd just say work hard on that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That might drop that 70,000 considerably. The other thing is, I think Randy might have alluded to it, is that maybe you should consider only allowing certain exemptions to exist and not all of the exemptions. In other words, you could take the MSBU exemption, or, you know, for some of the lower income. I know that's a difficult position to take, but it seems to me that these things all add up, and you're using all these different exemptions, that maybe that's not quite so fair for everybody else. Just something to look at, that's all. So, thanks a lot.
Well, and I'll throw out just for conversation. I mean, I certainly want us to help people who cannot afford to help themselves, especially on a tax that this board has imposed. But hard to figure out. But every day in my other life, in my other business, I see people who make X amount of income and who hide X amount of income from the federal government, and so. Just that tax return is not always an indicator of how much they earn. I know there are some folks that are fairly young and not on disability, but their income is below that level, and so they're receiving exemptions. Now,
We can set that at whatever we want. Right now, I think it's very low income. We could say 80% of very low income. We can make it whatever we want to make it.
well, can we? And I've thought about it, but I haven't fully explored this. Can we set, you know, other thresholds, like if you've got very low income and you're a senior citizen,
Yeah.
that'd be a category. If you got
Absolutely.
very low income and you're on disability, but, you know, possibly, and this is just thinking out loud, if you're not a senior citizen and you're not on disability, then the income alone would not be the deciding factor, because
we don't have to do an exemption at all.
you may be working for cash and earning more than people that are paying it.
Right.
You know, and so, I don't know. I don't know the legality of that, but I think having different criteria, we don't want anybody to fall through that honestly deserves it, but we don't want anyone getting a free ride that should be paying their fair share.
I agree.
I agree, but I do know that there are some senior citizens that do live on a very fixed income, and they honestly ain't got it.
Yeah, and I
You know,
do
and
not want to
those
hurt
are-
them.
No, and you're right. That's because it's like I've talked to Commissioner Thomas. We've been talking about this for a while and trying to figure out something. But
Yeah. There are
you
some
know,
citizens, Joe, that just
there's
honestly
one
ain't
guy
got
that
it.
come up there and walked into, applied and got it, and walked back to a brand new LTZ Tahoe.
I see it every day in my business.
Yeah,
But I got to pin down what I can prove.
that's right. That's right.
I'm gonna let Cheryl have the floor.
I want 1 minute, and I'll let you go eat your hamburger. I'm going to defend myself. I already defended it to David, but he didn't take up for me. But I do have an
I
increase.
took up for you.
I know you did. I do have an increase, but I do want to let you know that we I hired a company at no expense to the county, and we have recovered about $78,000 in delinquent taxes, which is netted a lot more to the county. Plus, we have one who signed up for payments at $5,000 a month, and they've already made 2 payments. So we've got a nice cash flow on our delinquent taxes coming into you. And although my budget does go up $40,000, as I promised David, I already see that I'll pay you more than that back next year. I promised you $30,000 on driver's license. I'm going to give you an excess of $70,000 next year already.
Wow.
So I don't want to be a burden to the county, but I look like one, but I hope that I'll have enough work and produce enough income that will show you that I'm not going to cost you if I can help it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good, good,
Appreciate
sure,
it.
good.
Do we have anyone else that wants to speak?
And it?
If not, we'll go ahead and close the workshop, and appreciate it. Thank you for all you do and everything for coming.
Nope.
Heather never says a word while she's here.
I've moved back over to the clerk's office, right outside Greg's door.
Oh.
If you have questions about specific stuff, please come see me and we'll sit down one-on-one to make sure that you understand all the variables that the finance side is working with to determine.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Am I painting you in a corner or something?
Shit, Jerry, I guess I just have to be hungry.
That ain't enough time to all that.
Hey.
Hey,
We need to have the hot dog truck roll by.
I should come here in my mortgage.
Well, the problem was is I couldn't say too much without commenting on each one of them, so.
I seen him when I seen him.
About eating all my candy. Cheryl's got a thing eating her fruit. There's no way I can make it. I'll be back. No way, buddy.
How you doing? Hey, Lynn.
It's probably like the mimosa, it's a wild, not as bad. Boy, it's definitely pretty. That's Dana? Phoenicia. Rattlebox. Well, the seeds probably do rattle. Orange wisteria, yeah.
Thank you. I just copied and pasted.
Maybe.
With
them,
Yeah, it's behind two public units. Yeah. Well, it won't be that bad. The cars won't be long. I don't think there's a whole lot of waiting. I'm used to waiting an hour or so. Yeah, I think that's about what you'll have to say.
It's going to be on a P&Z item? Okay. I was just telling him it's going to be on a P&Z item? Yeah, yeah. On the special area.
Boynton's.
Scott. What, is this other one for David? No. Or I'll keep it then.